Or Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We're waiting for the Maulana, inshallah. It's about time for Azan. If any volunteer for Azan here, if not, then I can go ahead and do it. Any volunteer? Oh, shukriya. Bismillah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله الله أكبر ولله الحمد الله أكبر الله أكبر جل جلاله الله أكبر الله أكبر جل جلاله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين عليا ولي الله وسير رسول الله وخليفته بالعافر اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين عليا حجة الله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير الأعمال لوح ذي الأمان الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين الذي بعد فلا يرى وقرب فشهد النجوى نحمده ونستعينه ونثني عليه ونؤمن به ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف بريته ومبلغ رسالاته العبد المؤيد الرسول المسدد المحمود الأحمد أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين عباد الله أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله. We begin this first Friday khutbah by reminding all of you and myself to maintain the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We started with the chapter of As-Sabr, the chapter of patience in the book of Imam al-Khomeini, in which he started with a narration that he quoted from Abi Basir, who was quoting from the sixth Imam. قال سمعت أبا عبد الله يقول إن الحر حر على جميع أهواله. He said that a free man, a free human being, he is free. His spiritual freedom never leaves him. He is free in all different scenarios, in all different situations. إن نابته نائبة صبر لها. When difficulties come his way, he is patient towards them. وإن تداكت عليه المصائب. And if all the calamities start to pour down on him, لم تكسره. They are not able to break him. They are not able to break his character. وإن أسر وقهر واستبدل باليسر عسرا. Even if he is captivated, even if he is dominated, even if his life becomes more difficult, this doesn't change who he is. And then the Imam, of course, gave the example of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam and how he went from the very highs of life to the very lows of life, to again the highs of life and again to the lows of life, multiple times throughout his life. And he said that the darkness of the well did not get him to change. The time that he was in the palace of Zulaykha and her husband did not get him to change. None of these realities in the world around him, none of the ups and downs that were happening for him changed who he was. He stayed the same individual that he was. So the Imam continues, he says, Imam Khomeini, he says that it is through this patience that the human being is willing to disregard the dunya. If he doesn't have this patience, the moment things become difficult, because he is so tied to the dunya, the moment things become difficult, he will then give up his values. He'll give up his morals. So this is where this topic is connected to the idea of patience. That's how he's branching away from the topic of patience. He says this person, if he's patient, when the world becomes difficult for him, he can stick to his values because he has that patience. But if he loses that patience, then the moment he feels like the dunya is walking away from him, he has to change. He's willing to do anything and everything to maintain this dunya, to hold on to this dunya. And he continued, he said, this person reaches a point where now he is bowing down to the dunya and the people of the dunya. If anyone promises him anything of the dunya, or he feels like someone can be the one who gives him the dunya, he's willing to do anything for him. His morals, his values, none of this stuff matter anymore. As long as this person can do this for me, that's the only thing that matters. The rest does not matter for me anymore. So this is where we reach this point. And the Imam says there are two things this person needs to do. There is one thing he needs to do that has to do with his thought process and his mindset, what we will discuss. And then in terms of his actions, he needs to combat this perspective that he has. In terms of his actions, he needs to act upon the opposite of his desires. And in terms of his mindset, he needs to remember that at the end of the day, those people that he's looking for to give him the dunya are themselves poor and empty-handed in this world. Now, these are not poor individuals in the sense that they don't have anything. No, it's not what he's saying. Many of these individuals are individuals who have connections, they have wealth, they might have fame, they might have things in this world. But he has to look at them in terms of the reality of who they are. In reality, he's saying he has to remind himself that they are also in need. They are also under the authority of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's difficult to say, of course. It's easy to say, difficult to believe. But this is what Imam Khomeini is saying. He says he has to remind himself that even they are in need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is a reality that we find. These human beings that we rely on, other people that we look at, we say this person is wealthy, powerful, he can solve my problems. But in reality, he himself is under this umbrella of the authority of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He himself, if God gives him a little bit of a hardship, his heart might stop beating. It's as simple as that. He himself might be in the hospital the next day. He himself might be in need of others to help him in other areas, other arenas of life. This is how it is. So Imam Khomeini says, if this person understands this, then it's easy for him that when difficulties come his way, he doesn't start going and begging to others. This is not the typical beggar that you see. No, this is not what he's talking about. He doesn't just offer his morals and values because this person is willing to promise him anything from the dunya. He won't be okay with political stances that go against his morals and values simply because this is what today offers to him. This is what the dunya offers to him. He's not willing to do this. And I want to share a couple stories from the life of the Prophet that we will, inshallah, be discussing this Ramadan. This, really beautiful life of the Prophet. This life of the Prophet that within our communities, in our Shia communities, quite often we don't even discuss nearly as much as we need to. Nearly as much as we need to. The seerah of the Prophet, the lifestyle of the Prophet, is something that we need to be discussing a lot more than we do in our communities. Inshallah, this Ramadan is an effort in that regard. But when you look in his life, you find instances where people came to him and offered him the dunya. They offered him anything and everything. It's in the city of Mecca. This is in Mecca now. When the Prophet migrated to Medina, it's a different story. When he migrated to Medina, now he established the government, he had followers, so on and so forth. When you're in Mecca, which is the bulk of the time of the prophethood of the Prophet, this 13 years that the Prophet is in Mecca, there were times where he was very desperate. He was very desperate. People were not supporting him. The bulk of Mecca, bulk of them relatives of him, they created problems for him. And in that difficult situation, when there were those who could have offered him the dunya and made this offer to him, but they just had one condition, that you have to drop some of these morals and values that you have. You have to let go of this, to compromise on that. Now, in Islam, compromising on certain things is allowed. Compromising on certain things is allowed. But when it comes to the fundamentals of the faith, then you can't compromise. So they used to come to the Prophet multiple times. They used to come to Abu Talib multiple times, giving them different offers. Like, how can we solve this situation that we have between ourselves and Muhammad, where he doesn't have to create problems for us, and we can give him something and he can quiet down. So enough with this, you can't worship this, you can't worship that. Enough with messing this dominance that Quraysh has. Quraysh had this high, noble, status. Everyone who came to Mecca knew Quraysh is, they are the ones who own everything. They're the ones who run everything. So how can we solve this? So they came to the Prophet on a multitude of different scenarios. One of those scenarios is the famous one that we've heard of, that they came to Abu Talib. And they said, Abu Talib, the son of your brother is creating too many problems. Go to him. Tell him we're willing to give him anything. We're willing to give him anything of this dunya that he wants. If he wants a good wife, we can find him a wife from any tribe that he wants. If he wants wealth, we can give him wealth. If he needs a doctor, we can offer a doctor. Whatever he wants, just like an open check. You tell us what you want. Only thing he has to do is he just can't be challenging our ideology like this. He can't come out there and say, no, this is wrong, that's wrong. You can't worship these idols, all of that kind of stuff. So open check. Why, a check, a signed check. Whatever he wants. So Abu Talib came to the son of his brother. And Abu Talib and Abdullah, the father of the Prophet, they were, brothers through their mother and their father. A very close relationship. This is why Abu Talib was taking care of the Prophet. Said, Muhammad, this is what they are saying. They're willing to give you anything. And the Prophet said, in this particular occasion, he said, you know what? If they give me the sun, they put it in my right hand. They take the moon, they put it in my left hand, which is impossible. Ma aratuhu, I wouldn't want it from them. But look at the response the Prophet gave. This sentence is so extremely beautiful. He said, if they give me the sun in my right hand, the moon in my left hand, I'm not going to stop from doing what I'm doing. But you know what, Abu Talib, you know what, uncle, I want from them instead of going through all of this trouble? Look at what the Prophet said. He said, they don't need to give me the moon. They don't need to give me the sun either. They just need to give me a couple sentences. They just need to say a couple words. And if they say these couple of words, in this world, they will become the kings of the Arab. They'll own everything. Because the Prophet knew where his movement was headed. On multiple occasions, when things were difficult, he would tell his companions that this faith is going to grow, it's going to spread. It's going to spread into the government of the Persians, it's going to spread into the kingdom of the Romans as well. Multiple occasions the Prophet foretold this. And if you put yourself in that perspective, you'd think that this is nonsense. How is this even possible? Your companions are getting killed every day, and you're saying Persia and Rome and all of this kind of stuff you're talking about. Multiple times he said this. He said, listen, I just want them to say a couple words. If they say these couple words, in this world, they will become the king of the Arab. In the next world, they will become the kings of heaven. I just need them to say a couple words. So Abu Talib came back. He said, this is what, my relative is offering. This is what Muhammad is offering. He says, you just have to say a couple things. And the narration says, the Abu Jahls of the world and the Abu Lahabs of the world. And Abu Lahab was an uncle of the Prophet. He was a distant uncle of the Prophet. They said, yes, of course. He just wants us to say some stuff. We'll do that. We're willing to do that, of course. All of his headache just for us to say some stuff? Yeah, we'll say it. So go tell Muhammad what he wants us to tell us. Abu Talib came back, asked him, he said, all I need them to say is Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So I just need them to say these couple words. That's all I need from them. All I need is for them to put aside their arrogance. That's all I need from them. I don't need the moon and I don't need the sun from them. And they came back and they said, how dare he ask for such a thing? We have 300 something idols. We're going to give up all of this? Come worship this God of his that we can't even see? They were willing to give him anything from the dunya. And it's interesting This was when Abu Talib was alive. All of you know that when Abu Talib passed away, things became even more difficult now. And the Prophet had that trip to the city of Ta'if. He went out of Mecca, maybe to find some supporters and followers there. They threw stones at him and rocks at him. He came back with wounds into Mecca. Then every year for Hajj, people used to come for Hajj. He used to approach different tribes, speak to them about Islam. Maybe some of them accept, maybe some of them support. And amongst those tribes were certain tribes who looked at the message of the Prophet. They said, you know what, if we can get him on our side, he will make us the most powerful of Arab. But we have to make a condition with him. That condition is this: once we become the king of Arab, then he has to make us in charge. He can't get a chance to say this one is going to be my successor. No. We have to be in charge. So one of these tribes he was speaking to, he spoke with them. The elderly of the tribe, they came back. They started to speak to one another. They said, if we get this fata, if we get this young man on our side, his philosophy, his ideology is so powerful, we will be able to become the kings of Arab. We'll rule everybody. But they came to the Prophet. They said, Ya Rasulullah, we need one thing from you. So what is that? He said, if we go through this and we defend you and we defend your family, and we're going to lose lives because we're going to be attacked. Okay, what about it? After everything is said and done and now you are in charge, will you make us in charge now? Put us in charge. And what did the Prophet respond with? The Prophet said, Al-amru lillah. He said, I can't promise that. Because the affairs are in the hands of Allah. يَذَعُهُ حَيْثُ يَشَاءُ. He's going to choose who's going to be in charge, who's not going to be in charge. And this old man, the elderly of this tribe, they came back. They said, Muhammad, if this is your offer, then go. We have no need of you. Because if you can't offer us what we want, we're not willing to put ourselves through difficulty. No, it's not something that we need. This is, when the Prophet is saying this, you have to understand, this is after Ta'if. This is after some of the Muslims already migrated to Abyssinia. This is after all of the torture and persecution and everything that the Prophet has gone. The Prophet is extremely, from a materialistic perspective, extremely desperate right now. It's like the most desperate moment of the life of the Prophet. This is after the year of sorrows, they used to call it. They said, we can give you anything, but you just have to compromise on some of these fundamental things in your faith. Why is the Prophet able to do this? Because of what the chapter of this talk is. As-sabr, because he is patient. The one who's not patient, he can't take it, he caves in and he gives in. He gives up his morals and values. The one who is patient, as the narration said, وَإِن تَدَاكَّتْ عَلَيْهِ الْمَصَائِبِ, even if all the calamities start to fall on him and pile up on him, he stays a free man. He stays a person who does not sell his morals and his values. These are easy for us 1400 years later to read in books of history. But this is the spectacular character of our beloved Prophet Muhammadin al-Mustafa. Salawatullahi salamuhu alayhi. Inshallah, with that we'll begin end our first khutbah. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. أثني عليه حامدا وأذكره مسبحا ثم أصلي وأسلم على نجيبه وجليله وحافظ سره الذي سمي في السماء بأحمد وفي الأراضين بأبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل فرجه. اللهم صل وسلم على علي أمير المؤمنين وفاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين وعلى سبطي نبي الرحمة وإمامي الهدى الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة وعلى علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف الهادي المهدي حججك على عبادك وأمنائك في أرضك صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات عباد الله أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله. We begin the second khutbah by reminding all of you and myself to maintain the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The verses of the Quran in Surah Al-Hashr, we reached verse number 3. This is following the story of the Prophet dealing with the Jewish tribe of Bani Nadir, who were in Medina, broke their peace treaty. The Prophet surrounded their castles, and they gave up. And they were willing to now leave the city of Medina. And as we mentioned, in history we read that the Prophet was very firm with this group of people. So initially when he asked them to leave, and they declined initially, when he asked them to leave, he gave them the opportunity to walk away with some of their wealth. And they declined initially. And as time went on and then they surrendered, the Prophet did not even allow for that amount of wealth to be taken. Even smaller amount, he allowed for it. And of course, this raises the question, and this is the point that we ended with in our last khutbah, that why is it that this rahmatan lil alameen, this messenger of Allah, who's supposed to manifest the mercy of Allah, why is it that you see sometimes he is firm? From the perspective of someone looking at him who doesn't really know him, might call him harsh. Why? And this is what these verses of the Quran were speaking about. And we said that this is a theological point to understand, that whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about being firm and harsh with somebody, know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is more merciful than you and I. Hence, if he is being harsh with someone, that means this person is worthy of this type of an approach. This is very important. We read the verses of the Quran and we say, well, aren't the verses of the Quran full of love and happiness and, all nice and dandy? Some of them are. Other ones, because they are human beings who no matter what you do will not set aside their arrogance. So verse 3 of Surah Al-Hajj said what? وَلَوْلَا أَنْ كَتَبَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمُ الْجَلَاءَ. If we had not forced them to leave, do you know in reality what they would have been worthy of? In reality, who they are is that they would have been worthy of a punishment coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and getting rid of them altogether. This is who they are. You don't understand who they are. If you look at the world today, most people you and I come across do not fall under this category. Most people you and I come across they're good people. This is, one might argue it's always been like this. Yes? But there are those who no matter what you do, their arrogance is too much. No matter what you do, until the final moments of their life, they will oppose the truth. They will violate the rights of others. Abdullah ibn Ubay was like this. The final moments of his life, the Prophet came to visit him. He said, Muhammad, now's not the time to try to get me on the right path. How arrogant do you have to be? And the Quran says, listen, there are people out there who are like this. You and I read, say, hellfire, it's very harsh. That's because you haven't met this person. That's because maybe you were younger when this person was willing to sanction a country, 500,000 children die, and at the end of the day, they say, you know what, it was worth it. It was a price that was worth it, and this is what, it's a difficult decision, but we had to do it, it's okay. You haven't met these people. I haven't met these people. But when you come across them and you get to know who they are, the one who lets a child starve to death and goes to sleep very well at night. Of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to be harsh with this person. Of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to speak about the punishment of hellfire because this person is worthy of it. We are never to forget that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is more merciful than you and I. So if someone qualifies for that mercy, know that he will receive that mercy. And if someone is not receiving that mercy, it automatically means that this person must have done something that is so horrible, he finds himself worthy of being where he is. Nobody, verses of the Quran tell us, nobody on the day of judgment says, I'm not supposed to be in hellfire. Nobody. There are people in hellfire who say, Ya Allah, you should save us, take us out of here. But none of them say, we're not worthy of being here. In fact, the verses of the Quran tell us every person who's going in there, before they go in there, What do the angels ask him? It says, were the messengers of God not sent to you? Did you not know that the things you were doing was going to lead to exactly this? And every single one of them says, yes, I knew. So, okay, so you're worthy of this. You knew you were doing this. You know you were starving children to death. Okay, so this is your place. It's not that people just end up in punishment and, it's God's accounting is not like our accounting. We do accounting, some things, things fall through the cracks sometimes, right? God's accounting isn't like that. You're worthy of it, that's where you end up. You're not worthy of it, you will never end up in a position like that. The Quran says, every single one of them, we ask them. It says, وَلَهُمْ فِي الْآخِرَةِ عَذَابُ النَّارِ. What's the problem with these people? ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ شَاقُوا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ. Because they had animosity towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger. They weren't willing to give up anything. وَمَنْ يُشَاقِ اللَّهَ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ شَدِيدُ الْعِقَابِ. Yes, if you're an enemy of God, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very harsh in His punishment. Yes. Our religion does not shy away from this at all. In this dua that we're going to be reciting in this month of Ramadan, yes? What do we read at the beginning of it? Say, oh Allah, you are the one who when it comes time for mercy, you're the most merciful. When it comes time to be harsh and firm, you are shadidul iqab. You don't hold back. Why? Because this is who this person is. He has animosity. The verses of the Quran continue. مَا قَطَعْتُم مِّن لِينَةٍ أَوْ تَرَكْتُمُوهَا. Whatever trees you cut down in this war, أَوْ تَرَكْتُمُوهَا, or the ones that you left قَائِمَةً عَلَى أُصُولِهَا فَبِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. It was with the permission of Allah that you did this. This refers to the story we were quoting before, that the Prophet ordered for some of the palm trees to be cut down. And the Jewish tribe who was in their castles, who had broken their peace treaty, they said, Muhammad, you have never done such a thing. And you've ordered others not to do such a thing in war. So why are you doing it now? This was because this particular scenario was a particular command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To avoid the heavy bloodshed, the Prophet allowed for what? For the trees to be cut down. And this opens a discussion about the rules of engagement in war that Islam established. Now, take this into the context of 1400 years ago. 1400 years ago, when you took over a city, forget about rules of engagement, don't do this, don't do that. No, you came in, you did whatever you wished to do. That's how it was. There's no rules, there's no principles to go by. The Prophet established these rules and principles because his message was coming from a divine source. That is why he had these principles. Amongst those principles, I'm going to list some of them. Amongst those principles is that when the peace treaty was broken, before the Muslims were allowed to go and take over a place, they had to announce to the people that the peace treaty we had before is done. There's no idea of just sneaking up on you. No, the peace treaty we had before, you broke it. So that peace treaty is now void. This is the relationship that we have now. The Quran says you have to announce this. This is number one. Number two was giving them a chance to hear the message of the Prophet. And this happened in some of the battles of the Prophet. The two armies were standing there. They were ready to engage with one another. And someone from the other side said, I want to hear what this message is anyways. And the Quran says you had to give this person protection. From this side, he had to come and sit and hear the message of the Prophet. And then you had to make sure he returns back safe to the other side. Because he has to have an opportunity. If he really wants to hear the message, he has to have an opportunity to hear the message. Number three was that war was only allowed at certain times of the year. Number four, you cannot be the one who begins the war. As you saw this in multiple battles of the Prophet. Multiple battles of Ali ibn Abi Talib, you also saw this. Number five, that after the war is done, you cannot dismember bodies. You're not allowed to do this. These are rules that you and I think these are easy. When you come across someone who massacred your family 10, 15 years ago, now you get the opportunity to get revenge of this person. I'm putting it in the context of 1400 years ago, of course. These don't apply to us in this way. It's not easy. You want to take out everything. And the Prophet said, no, you're not allowed to do this. These are amongst the rules of war. Number six, the elderly, you are not allowed to go to combat with them. The youngsters, you are not allowed to go to combat with them. The women, you are not allowed to go to combat with them. The mentally disabled, you are not allowed to go to combat with them. Number seven, the captives, you are not allowed to hurt them. Number 8, the water of the city, you are not allowed to poison it. Number 9, the trees of the city, you are not allowed to cut them down. Number 10, the animals that are roaming around in the city, you are not allowed to hurt them. Number 11, any promise you make to the enemy, you have to keep. Number 12, if any of the enemy, they want to seek refuge in you, meaning that they're putting down their weapon, they're saying, I don't want this war. You have to give them immunity. You have to let them enter into the folds of your army. These are the rules of war. These things nowadays might seem a little, we look at it, we say, oh, I might change this, You have to put this in the context of 1400 years ago, where kingdoms used to come, pillage, and just move on. They would massacre and move on. Forget about kingdoms. Yazid la'natullahi alayh. After the event of Karbala, what happened? He had the opportunity to go to Mecca and Medina. What did he do in Medina? He opened Medina to his troops for 3 days. He said, go and do whatever you wish to do. And they committed crimes that historians are embarrassed to even speak of. And it's interesting, in other schools of thought, when it comes to the martyrdom of our beloved Imam, you will find some historians are a bit, hesitant in other schools of thought. They'll say, well, maybe it wasn't him, maybe it was Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, this, that, all of this stuff that we obviously don't agree with, yes? But when it comes to pillaging the city of Medina, pillaging the city of the Prophet, you find all of them are speechless now. Because this was at the direct command of someone like this. This is how war used to be fought. And then this Prophet, who is Rahmatan lil Alameen, came. He said, you have to fight the war, but you have to do it within this framework. You're not allowed to do this, 12, 15, 20 different rules of engagement. This is because the message of the Prophet was a divine message. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He places us amongst those who can follow in the footsteps of our beloved Prophet. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. اللهم صل على محمد.
We are unable to find the small mic, so please, while Salaat, follow the stuff ahead of you. So since there will be probably no sound of Maulana.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر الله الرحمن الله الرحمن الرحيم آخرين قل يا أيها يا أيها فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون فإذا قضيت الصلاة فانتشروا في الأرض وابتغوا من فضل الله واذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون وإذا رأوا تجارة أو لهوا انفضوا إليها وتركوك قائما قل ما عند الله خير من اللهو ومن التجارة والله خير الرازقين الله أكبر اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم ارزقنا توفيق الطاعة وبعد المعصية اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الله أكبر سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر حول الله وقوته الله الرحمن ربي العظيم سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضعيف الله أكبر بسم الله وبالله الحمد لله لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته الله أكبر الله أكبر
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. لا إله إلا الله. لا إله إلا الله. لا إله إلا الله. تسبيحات وزرا. سلام الله.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. ما صلى على محمد. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. ما صلى على أشهد أن عليا حجة الله صلوات الله وسلامه. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب. يا محسن قد أتاك المسيء أنت المحسن وأنا المسيء فتجاوز عن قبيح ما عندنا بجميل ما عندك يا كريم. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. يا من أظهر الجميل وستر القبيح. يا من لم يؤاخذ بالجريرة ولم يهتك الستر. يا عظيم العاف يا حسن التجاوز. يا واسع المغفرة يا باسط اليدين بالرحمة. يا صاحب كل نجوى يا منتهى كل شكوى. يا مبتدئا بالنعم قبل استحقاقها. يا ربنا وسيدنا ومولانا وغاية رغبتنا. أسألك أن تصلي على محمد وآل محمد وأن تعجل فرجهم. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وتقبل شفاعته وارفع درجته. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. سبحان الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضعيف. الله أكبر. بسم الله وبالله الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآله.
Mu'minin, let's recite Dua Wahda together. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. La ilaha illallah, ilahan wahidan wa nahnu lahu muslimun. La ilaha illallah, ilah wa na'budu illa iyyah wa mukhlisina lahu ad-din walau kariha al-mushrikun. لا إله إلا الله ربنا ورب آبائنا المستقلين. لا إله إلا الله وحده 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 أنجز وعده ونصر عبده وعز جنده وهزم الأحزاب وحده. فله الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت ويميت ويحيي وهو حي لا يموت بيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير. إن الله صل على محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك يا رسول الله. السلام عليك يا حبيب الله. السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب. السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين. السلام على 9 المعصومين من ذرية الحسين. السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن. السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليكم يا أهل بيت النبوة جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته.
اللهم